Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bridge Building with Angela podcast. I am your host, Angela Johnson Ayers. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. Like we do at the beginning of every show, we like to check in with the question, what have you done today, plan to do, or are you doing now to assist in you walking across your personal bridge to your dreams, your goals, your destiny, and just your purpose on life? Hope you're having a great day. But today's show is really going to be impactful and exciting, very informative. I am so blessed and honored to have with me Miss Lisa Gilliam. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, Lisa is a counselor, a minister, and she uses her gifts and her profession as a singer and as a motivational speaker just to reach out and teach and encourage others in her journey, her own personal journey, and through struggles, loss, triumphs, and also coming out victorious on the other side. Does that sound about right to you, Lisa?
Yes, definitely. That's the goal.
Yeah. It is. I tell you, it is for all of us. You know, I was thinking, and so many times, you know, we hear and we read about this Superwoman, women, we can just do it all, you know, and I know for myself, Lisa, and I know for many of our listeners, not knowing how to do something never came to my mind. Like, you know, I always just figure I can figure it out, I can do it, you know. And so after going through life and disappointments and things happening, you wake up one day, and I found myself one day on the floor in our kitchen in a fetal position, you know, just crying, having a breakdown. And even in that moment of having a breakdown, I saw it as a weakness. You know, I saw it as, oh my God, I should be able even to handle this. You know, have you ever found yourself in that moment, or tell me a little bit about your story?
Yes, absolutely. I've been through a lot in my life. I'm learning to speak about everything more as opposed to some things less, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I always felt like I was a person that just literally part of my purpose is tell my business so other people can be healed. But what I learned is that everybody can't take all that I've gone through. However, I do believe and count it as a testimony. So just generally speaking, when I was younger, I was sexually abused and molested by family members, different ones that they didn't know, weren't aware of. Freshman year of college, which I absolutely love my college, I was date raped. And then before that happened, my dad died a week before my senior year in high school. So I didn't even have him going into college. But, you know, because of his death, ironically enough, I was able to get more money, Pell Grants, all that type of stuff so that I could go. And my dad was pretty big on education and school. Had the blessing of graduating through college. My grandmother's helped, my maternal grandmother especially. And she died 3 days before Christmas in 95. So she got to see me graduate. I changed majors, and because I changed majors, I was able to finish the year that I was supposed to finish. But then when I was supposed to go to AMDA, because I had been accepted to the American Music and Dramatic Academy in New York City, we weren't allowed to work to our second semester, second year. And because I already had my bachelor's, and this was just to get more training in music and dance and theater, my mom was still in school at the time. My brother was still in college at the time, too. When my mom had gone back to college, I felt it was unfair for me to try to go because I wouldn't be able to work. She would have had to do everything. You know, New York City is expensive.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to AMDA. I ended up, you know, working here and there, but literally just struggling with a bachelor's, making like $6 an hour, and had, you know, my car repoed, and then we lost the house, and we were in essence homeless. We were able to find someplace else, stay with friends, and then 2 years ago, I walked in from work to my mom being unconscious and having to be resuscitated in front of me, and she died 2 weeks later. And I don't talk about that as much. I'm hoping that my family members won't be upset, you know, with me sharing it. But my mom, seeing her like that, also caused me or triggered me from walking in, finding my grandmother dead in 95. And so it caused PTSD all over again, basically, post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of people think you can only get that from fighting the war, but it's any type of trauma. So I just named about 5 or 6 traumas that I've gone through, in my life. And so although I don't talk about them usually in whole like I am right now, the blessing is, and, like I said, that's the goal. There's some areas where I'm healed. There's some areas where I'm still broken. But I just spoke last week about broken crayons still color. And although that I'm broken in some areas, God is still healing me. He's still using me. I still have purpose. I tell my clients, or I used to tell them all the time, that if you're alive, you have purpose. And so I'm trying to heal in the areas that are still broken, and I'm trying to thrive in those areas that I've already healed, so that eventually, that narrow path that we're supposed to travel, I'll be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do all the time, trying to get into the place, the goal, the purpose that God has, created for me. But it's definitely been an interesting life, to say the least.
I love what you just said. It was so powerful. Broken crayon, still color. I never even thought of that, because you know how many of us, I know me, my children, when their crayons break and I see them on the floor, I pick them up and throw them away. But they still, that's a waste of money. That's a waste of money. Because they still color.
They do, and I talked about how, in the crayon box, especially if you use a 64 one, Crayola, it was a sharpener. And the sharpener means that sometimes we need sharpening to get to the point, again, of what we're supposed to do, to get back to that place. So instead of, wasting money, like you just said, or destroying, or feeling like, I'm not usable. No, that's not true. Until the crayon is gone, until all that wax is used up, you can still use it. Just peel off the paper or sharpen it again, you know what I mean, and do what you need to do. There's different, things that we color. Some have, wider spaces. Some have narrower spaces. Maybe the broken crayon can get in there and color a little bit better than the one with the sharp point, but you don't have to be brand new in order to be used.
I love it. I love it. That is powerful. I'm telling you, it's like my eyes have been open. That's powerful. Let me ask you this, because in between those traumas, you named like the molestation, and then years later the rape, death of your father, and on. Did you seek, and I know you were young, definitely, but did you seek, what type of counseling or any did you receive?
So I would say, like, all of the stuff that happened as a child, I didn't. I had a really great family, and we also had a really strong Christian foundation. So I could always talk to my family about that stuff, but I do wish that they had put me in counseling, because when I became a counselor, after going to grad school, I'm just like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, Lisa, that, you still need to work on. When I was in college, after the date rape, I didn't actually seek counseling, but I had gone to the doctor, and then he did suggest it. But I don't know why I didn't. I just honestly kind of repressed it and suppressed it. I literally tried to forget it, put it in the back of my mind, and just, this was my freshman year. I literally had been there like not even a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Labor Day weekend. I don't ever forget that. And sometimes, the different things that happen, if they happen around the holidays or a special day or whatever, it's easily a trigger for you, because you're like, this is the day that this happened. It wasn't until I actually, when you're in school for counseling, they do suggest, even if it's mock counseling, you have to talk to a counselor about some of your stuff. So we had to, sometimes we pretend counseling sessions just to show or highlight our skills. But it was during that time that I realized, I probably do need to get some help. But I can say I really didn't do it consistently until I was grown, out of grad school. And I'm 46 now. I'm not ashamed. So, like, I would say the last, off and on, probably the last 10 years or so, I worked in a job where they would shoot in the neighborhood. This was just like 2015. Coincidentally, my fraternal grandmother died that year, and that was my last living grandparent. And so now I have no grandparents and no parents, and I felt like an orphan. And it was just a really hard time. At that time, my mom was still alive, but when she died, that's when I, felt like an orphan. So within these last few years, the person who used to love to minister at funerals, whether it was singing or even doing eulogies or whatever, was like, I don't really want to go to another funeral. Like, I'm funeraled out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, of course, people die all the time. So I realized I really did need to, like, kind of get some help to process through this. I never thought – I do want to say this real quick. A lot of people think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a parent. It's just, you know, this is just that. It's just my brother. It's just my sister. Whatever it is when it comes to death, you do not know how you'll react. I never had this same type of trauma or traumatic experience with anybody else other than my grandmother. Finding her deceased, that was hard for me, and I did go through about a depression and didn't even know what it was. I hadn't started grad school then, wasn't really sure what it was I was experiencing. But for my mom, I didn't know that I would have that type of pain or that, you know, it would bring back the feelings I had of finding my grandmother. So I'm in counseling now and not ashamed about it. And I try to, you know, advocate for other people and for myself and just for mental health in general. Like, we need to get the help that we need to get. It's a lot of people walking around undiagnosed and they're acting like they're okay. And I'm like, you're not. And to me, you're not helping yourself or the people that, you know, love you if you're walking around hurt. It's no different than with physical illness. If you're sick, you know, and you don't get any help, you cause other people to be sick and get in danger. And so, no, mental health doesn't necessarily transfer like that. It can, for some people, you know, genetics could have something to do with it, but it still affects the people that are around you. A lot of people don't know what to do if you tell them you have schizophrenia or bipolar or depression or anxiety. They're just like, something's wrong with you. Get away from me. Leave me alone. And instead of doing the research to help, they push people away.
Yeah, and
I want to try to encourage help.
Yeah, and definitely, and professional help, because I know, you know, growing up in the church all my life for many years, and then in many cases, certain cultures, you know, like in the African American community, many times it was seen, especially many years ago, it was seen as taboo. You know, you were told, girl, all you need is go to the altar. All you need is Jesus.
Yeah.
You just lay prostrate before the Lord, and He'll deliver you from it. And yes, God can do all things but fail. But I also believe that deliverance is getting whole can come in many different avenues. And so it's very important. And so definitely for some of our listeners who you may be struggling with certain mental illness, or you just know something is not right, but you may go to your church or synagogue or mosque or wherever you worship, and people make you feel guilty for wanting to get some help. I really beseech you that you seek help regardless of what they may be saying, because, you know, it's no need for you to suffer in silence. There's no need for you to fight these demons by yourself. And also I like people to know, Lisa, that their trauma is not who they are. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Many times we take it on, and so we say, okay, well, this bad thing has happened to me, therefore I'm a bad person. And that leads me to want to ask you, Lisa, how did you, especially in your young mind with the molestation, were you able to, did you compartmentalize it? Did you stash it away internally? How were you able to handle that with a child's mind, not really knowing how to work through that type of trauma?
So a lot of my responses now, I guess, are going to be in retrospect. I do think I did compartmentalize it. I do think because my family was so happy and supportive of me, and I knew I had support, it just didn't really affect me, so I thought, from living a good childhood life. We had so many other struggles, like financial struggles. We moved a lot. My dad had hurt his back. He was a mechanic, but, mechanics have to be on the ground. Well, it's hard to be on the ground when you have a back that's hurting. My mom was an LPN, so it wasn't like she made, tons of money, as a nurse. And so I watched her a lot of times carry the brunt of everything that was kind of happening. So I think because I was so engulfed in my family, some might say nosy as a child, that was my focus. You know what I mean? I don't think I thought about what had happened to me.
So you didn't internalize it and say, okay, it was my fault. It was something I did. I'm bad. I'm whatever.
I think I definitely felt like I was bad. Like it's something, it's interesting because when I became a counselor and you come across other people who've been abused or molested or raped or even domestic violence victims or whatever, there's a commonality in that. No one wants to be in that type of situation, but a lot of us do blame ourselves. But it wasn't, for me, enough to stop living. I praise God for that because I've heard some horror stories where people stopped learning. They, completely shut down. They stopped socializing. But we were always in sports and we were always in church things. And we were always in so many things. And my parents, when they found out about it, not only talked to me but talked to the family member. I was able to, in a sense, as much as I could, process through it and know that it was wrong, you know what I mean? But I will say, as an adult, the part that I wish was really dealt with is that I didn't feel, or I still sometimes don't feel like I'm protected, even as an adult, because I was put in situations family situations where I still had to see these individuals. Nothing happened necessarily in those situations anymore, but it's still, even as an adult, we're going to such and such's house for the holidays. I don't want to go. That's somebody that hurt me, and it's okay for me to set my boundaries. I know it was in the 2000s, like probably 2012, 11, 12, when I finally was just like, no, I don't want to go to celebratory events with these people. I've forgiven them, but this is my boundary. Because seeing them sometimes or being around them sometimes just reminds me of how much I was not protected, when I was younger. And it wasn't that my family is very, they're not the ones that let you walk off and do whatever you want to do. It wasn't that. So no one would have really known if I didn't ever say anything. And I've actually confronted both of those, the two that I know of. It might have been another one that's now deceased. But it's interesting how one trigger can remind you of something else. And so I just kind of been focusing on that. But I absolutely felt like a bad person. I absolutely felt like, what did I do to deserve this, or why is this happening to me? And it has affected my adult relationships with, males that I've been in a relationship in. And I've definitely made, I said I feel like Paul. I've done things that I shouldn't do, and I've not done things that I should in trying to sort this out. But the difference is I'm getting help. Most people stay stuck in that place and don't try to get help. And so I believe eventually I'm going to come out.
Well,
and I'll be okay.
Because another thing I wanted to ask was, okay, men in college, when that happened to you, what made you, because again, many times rape victims, the way that they may deal with that type of trauma is they may totally just not even want to deal with the sex of the person who may have molested us. Let's say if it was a man who raped you, then they would totally turn to the opposite direction and want to become lesbian or just don't want to do people at all. Or in one or another end of the spectrum, they become extremely promiscuous, I've seen, working with certain victims. So how did you work through that?
I actually was probably, I wouldn't say extremely, but I was closer to the latter. So I was somewhere in between. Like they usually, I actually did a report on day rape when I was there, coincidentally. I can't remember if it was right before it happened or right after, but the information, the stats that I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, that's how I felt. I think the information is powerful. I remember my boyfriend at the time, hopefully he may hear this or whatever, but we're good now. He blamed me, I played sports. He's like, you have strong legs. How could you let that happen? Well, the guy was like 6'7". I'm 6'1". Well, I'm 5'11" now, according to the doctors. But he was 6'7", 6'8". I couldn't. He was stronger than me. Like it was what it was, and it was somebody that I was cool with. So I wasn't expecting that to happen, and so having to not blame or hear the blame from my boyfriend at the time, and explaining to him what happened. And this is before we had cell phones. I had to wait until I saw him because I didn't want to say it on a payphone in the middle of the hallway. That's how long ago it was. But I did turn to, honestly, sex to fill the void. Not all the time, but more than I would like to say. And I believe, even as a Christian, more than one time is too many according to God. And so that's probably been one of the hardest things that or fallbacks for me that I've had to deal with because it opens up an area of you that you're not, wanting to open up. You know what I'm saying? When you've been abused or molested or assaulted in any way sexually, you're right. Some people do end up, getting involved with same sex or whatever. That was not my thing and never was. I'm thankful for that, not against anybody that is. I have friends, who may, deal with that or that's their choice or whatever, and I believe that we can love everybody regardless of their choice, even if we agree or don't agree. But I do feel that, I definitely got involved with people that I shouldn't have. It made me want to I wanted to have trust in humanity, but at the same time I kept on getting hurt.
With the boyfriend, because many victims also, they do get that, and not just from boyfriends, but I remember I used to be a principal, and sometimes when a student came to me, I would have to, about something going on, they would say, and I would talk to the parents, and I would say, your daughter has informed me that your boyfriend has been touching her. And instantly the mother, in many cases, instead of having compassion for their own child, they would side with the boyfriend and make the daughter feel guilty. It was your fault. It's your fault. And, at the time I was a middle school principal, so you telling a middle school little girl that it's her fault that a grown behind man touched her. So I can only imagine. So as a woman now in college, when the boyfriend said that to you, did you start to even question, well, maybe it wasn't my fault, or did you just know right off the bat it was not my fault?
I knew that it was not my fault, but I questioned why I was there, if that makes any sense. I can say that this was a person who played sports. I remember that I was supposed to be, and I'm going to eventually finish my book, and all of this will be in detail in the book, but I remember that I was supposed to go to a concert, but as a music major, my choir had a concert, and I had a scholarship from the choir, so it was mandatory for me to, participate in all of whatever we had to do. And my choir concert ended up being canceled, and so I was free. And if you know anything about music majors, at least at my college, we had maybe 17 credits like everybody else, but a lot of our classes were 2 credits or 1 credit. So I might have had 10 classes where everybody else had 5 or, 6. And so we were always in school, always in rehearsal. All that was a part of being a music major at the time. I ended up changing to speech and drama later on, but it definitely it left me bored. It's a holiday weekend. My friends, we came back to the school early. I'm supposed to be at this concert, but because it was canceled, the other concert that I was going to with my friends, the tickets had already been sold, so I was just in the dorm room alone. And so one of the guys that I'd seen around campus was just like, why don't you come over, da-da-da, whatever. I knew him. I knew a few other people. I never would have expected, that's how we were actually talking about my boyfriend at the time. And so, some people say it's being naive. So, like my friends, I told my roommate where I was, and I'm thankful for her because, to my knowledge, she never shared with anybody else. I told her, and I thank God. I had prayed for a safe roommate when I went to college, and she definitely was. Jamila, I'm very thankful for her. And I don't think she ever shared with anybody else, but I did call my mom, and I did call, and my aunt knew, and my brother.
Did you press charges?
I didn't. And sometimes I regret that, but because I was there for just that first month, I honestly fear. I didn't want to be involved in any type of scandal at the college and all of that stuff. There's so many different levels that you think of. What was I, 17, 18 years old at the time? Did I want to stay at the school? I thought about changing, switching to transferring to another school, because that wasn't his last year. But then I really prayed, and I asked God, one, to forgive me for not having the strength enough to tell, to press charges or tell on him or whatever, or go through that, but to pray that he wouldn't do this to anybody else. And that's probably been the biggest, hurt that I had, just because you never know. I
do you
definitely
think he
wasn't
had
strong
done it
enough.
before?
I don't know, but I'm just saying if he had done it after me, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I would not want anybody else to go through that situation. And I did see him on campus, and saw some of him and his girlfriends, and I pray that was never the case. But I do have to share this testimony. 17 years after that happened, I happened to go to the school, and I prayed that year because I used to do this thing called Past the Present conference, and it would just be people telling their stories, their testimonies about our past, and then we were in the present. And I prayed that year, and I said, God, I don't want to preach or speak from a place of pain. Sometimes you're given a message where you're healed, and sometimes you're given a message where you're still working through it. You're not always, delivered when God tells you to speak about something. And so my topic that year was being a victor, not a victim, overcoming, sexual abuse, molestation, and date rape, not knowing that I would run into the guy at the game. Hadn't seen him in 17 years, and I had already prayed that year, but I didn't know that God would allow me to run into him. When I tell you that the footsteps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord, they are. That particular day, I didn't even have money because I just started a new job. And one of the coworkers at my school, my job, gave me $100 so that I could go. Now, this wasn't a need. This was a desire. I just wanted to go to the game. We had this thing called Gold Bowl, and it wasn't even homecoming, but more people went to Gold Bowl than they went to homecoming. So people listening will probably know now the school and stuff. But nonetheless, no shame or shade on the school. I love my school. There's a true affinity for VUU. However, I had to go to the bank. My mom decided, you know what, I'm going to just fix you brunch. So why don't you just, keep brunch? And then I had to make stops. I called a friend. I was like, I don't have anybody to hang out with because I hadn't gone in years. And everything that slowed me down from getting there at the time that I thought I was going to get there put me right in the place where I was supposed to be. I ran into a friend who lives up here. Her friend said I'm not coming. She had an extra room. She had 2 beds in the hotel room, so I didn't have to pay for a hotel room. I had money for food, money for gas. And I saw this guy, didn't even recognize him, Angela, at all, because it had been so long. And he came up to me. He's like, I've been looking for you. And I'm like, what? And I asked another friend. I was like, who is that? Like, literally, I couldn't remember his face. Like, I had blocked out everything about him. He's like, I've been looking for you, at homecoming all these years or whatever. I don't remember what I did, but I know I did something to you. And I was like, yes, you do. You remember. And he's like, no, I really don't. And so I was like, basically, you date raped me. And he was like, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I have been basically plagued with this from all these years, from what I did to you. And I'm so sorry for what I did. And when I tell you for like a moment, time stood still, I cried. I was just like, wow, God, I said I wanted to be delivered from this when I spoke. I was speaking at the conference the next month, but I had to sing at an event the next day, so I was able to go and share my testimony and how God had healed that part, of my life. And how he says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I didn't have to do anything to this guy. He was being, tortured because of what he did, his actions all this time. So even though I didn't have the strength to press charges at that time, he still got something, that he wasn't expecting. But I got delivered in the sense that God still protected me all that time. And I know some people listening may not understand, but once again, if you've never been through situations, just don't judge, because you don't know, what you would do if it's happened to you. But someone was at that event and someone was at the conference when I did it who was having a really hard time forgiving someone who had molested their daughter and who had molested somebody else, had been molested or hurt. And because they heard that testimony, they were willing to forgive that person. And that, to me, is what it's all about. We often go through things in our lives and we want to be quiet about because we're ashamed. I'm not happy about a lot of the decisions that I made in my life. But I do trust God to bring me out as pure gold. I trust him when he says all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to them who are called according to his purpose. And I know I have purpose. And so even with the bad decisions I made, and I made some bad ones, really bad ones, I thank God for even the good ones that I made. And I've learned, yes, he said, judge not lest you be judged, but he also talks about judging with, so if I know that you're doing something or you're sinning as my sister in Christ, I can call you out on that. But that doesn't mean that I'm any better than you. Absolutely. That moat beam theory is true. We always want to talk about the little, no, you got a whole beam in your eye. And you talk about the moat. No, we need to really, yes, we can call it out, call a spade a spade, but pray for the person. Stop, be there through the process. Help them as, to get healed. Don't just see the sin, call it out and then roll. That's not helping. Are you praying for them? Are you, talking to them? Are you believing that they're going to be able to overcome whatever it is that they're going through? So God has shown me how much I need him and how much I didn't have it together, and a lot of it wasn't even because of my own actions. It was because of the things that I experienced, the trauma that I experienced, the way I think is differently, not necessarily good. So I have to retrain my thoughts, and try to get stuff in a place where, yes, it lines up with God, but when it comes to like mental health and mental awareness, like you said, yes, I believe we can pray. Yes, I believe God can heal, just like he can with physical. But I know a lot of people who died with cancer. I know a lot of people who died from diabetes. I know some people who died because of asthma. I know people who have died with physical ailments who love Jesus. So why is it that we don't believe that people will die with the mental health, issues who love Jesus? Right. If you can get medicine, take the medicine until the manifestation comes. If you have to go to counseling, go to counseling, psychiatrist, whatever you got to do until the manifestation of healing comes. Like, he wouldn't have created us to have those professions if it wasn't going to be able to be a help. So, let's just stop living in the darkness and let's start living, like, for real, celebrating life,
But, as women, and that's so true, everything you said is so powerful. As women, a lot of times, we don't even take the time to put our mental health first. We think about our careers, even when I was unmarried, I was, busy pursuing career, education, dating, carrying on. And so sometimes you're so caught, your life becomes so mundane, so you don't even realize that your normal is really not the best normal for you. It's almost like if you live next to a manure patch, after a while, that manure, you don't smell it anymore. But when your visitors or guests come to your house, they're like, girl, don't you smell that? You're like, no.
Right.
And it's just like, and so that's what I say with many cases, with not just women, but people in general. Sometimes it's just always good to just check in with the healthcare provider just to make sure your normal really is your best normal. You know what I'm saying? Just to make sure that, am I thinking the right way? Because for me, my thoughts, I battle with this negative thoughts. I've always been, when I was a child, I was very positive. Something must have happened when age of 9 and 12. I don't know what it really is, and I may never know. Through counseling, it would never really come to me, and, maybe it's, I don't know. But I just know that it was a shift in my personality where I became very angry, I became very negative. And so I have battled all my life of being a very negative type person. When I wake up in the morning, the first thought is not, wow, it's going to be a great day. Like, I have to force myself to say that because I know that's part of my rethinking, my retraining my brain. Whereas my husband, that dude literally smiles when he's sleeping. Like, that dude, he wakes up happy. Like in the middle of the night, he'll say, I love you. And I'm like, what? What is that? Not just so negative. And, I'm looking at him like, why are you so darn happy? Like, his first wife passed away. I mean, he has a lot of areas that he could really be a real negative person. I mean, he buried his first wife. Our son, his son, I say ours because he's ours, we became one. He's incarcerated. Like, my husband had been homeless when he was young. He just been through a lot. And so he's the type of dude, he has every right on paper to be extremely negative. But he's the most positive, happy person I know. And for me, I look at him like, why the heck are you smiling, And so for some people, I just want people to know that it's not good and it's not healthy to walk around negative and unhappy. It's not good for your health. Trauma, see, we always think this trauma, when we say the word trauma, we think it has to be something that's cataclysmic, that's happened. You've lost all your kids in a fire, Trauma, and that is, and I do know of a couple who that did actually happen to them. But a trauma could be anything, even down to getting your car repossessed. You understand what I'm saying? And how you handle it. Because in many cases, very horrible and heartbreaking things happen, but our response is really what adds to the trauma of it. You understand? Because, so for example, let's see, in my husband, for example, I talked to him a lot about how did he handle the trauma of losing his first wife to death. And he didn't really see it as, of course he missed her and loved her, but the trauma to him, the way he processed it was, she's no longer in pain. It's no longer the suffering with the sickness. You know, he was able to handle it in a healthier way, wherein many people may have, it could have wiped them out and they would have maybe taken their life as well. And
Right.
so I just don't want our listeners to think that they have to stay stuck. If you're hearing voices, you're not crazy. All your life, people may have told you, girl, you're just crazy. You just crazy. No, you're not crazy. There's something going on, but there's help for you. And I just beseech you, please talk to someone. You understand? There are many, and at the end of, at the podcast, underneath the description, I'm going to have like some phone numbers where you can speak to like rape crisis people, hotlines to just speak to someone, mental health hotlines, because, it's a real thing, Lisa, that people are hearing voices and people are walking around thinking that they're crazy, you know, and really they're not. There's just something off with you. It could be your hormones. Some women don't even experience certain mental illnesses till after giving birth because your hormones chemically have not snapped back. And so now you're just dealing with so many things that go along with the chemicals in the body and the neurons in the brain, you know, impacting you.
And the thing is, now we actually have information at our fingertips. Like,
Absolutely.
just go online. You can research anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, find out, you know, what might be happening. But you're exactly right. Those are definitely some of the things. I think out of everything that I've ever done, I want people to understand that, yes, it can happen to you too. Mm-hmm. Even when you're as positive as you said your husband is.
Right.
It has that, you know, praise God that that's not the way that he internalized it. I'm more like you. Yes, sometimes, you know, I've thought negative, but right. When you've had negative things happen to you, then it's easy to go, you know, that route.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that you can't overcome. But just let's not think that, oh, that would never happen to me. Because honestly, I didn't think, you couldn't have told me that I would have reacted this way once my mom died. And I miss her every day. And I still have, I'm still grieving the trauma, not her. Like, my mom was saved. I know she is dancing, having a ball. Like, I'm clear about that part. But the trauma experienced or associated with it, it's nothing. It's one thing to be told someone died. It's another thing to see it and experience it for yourself and you be in the room when they're taking their last breath. Like, I can't erase that from my mind. And so it's going to take time for me to heal, and it's also going to take people, and when I say people, not just whoever the significant other is, but like my friends, my family, like the support, you know what I mean, to nurture that healing. And so it's been a process, you know, 2 years, you know, when we think of a child 2 years old is not a long time. And so I don't feel like it's been forever. It's only been 2 years, and but it sometimes still feels like yesterday. You know what I mean? And so I keep going, and I'm thankful that I can keep going, and I couldn't do it without God. Like, he really is my strength. He's the reason I get up. I've had insomnia for 2 years. Basically, I'm now starting to sleep a little bit more soundly. Still intermittent, but it's better than it was. He blessed me with a new job, you know, so I'll have consistent pay, benefits, and, like, with all the other stuff that was happening, I was still struggling in other areas, but I'm watching him, you know, move in ways that I didn't expect. And so all I can do is keep going. I'm not ashamed, you know, of my past, not happy about some of the things that I've done, but, or some of the things that were done to me. But if I keep quiet about it, it only affects me, you know, like you would never know any of the things that I went through if I didn't tell you, because I don't look like it. It doesn't seem like it. That is why I give God glory. He gets all glory for that. So,
and you know, it's
what he's done thus far. You know,
victims don't really have a look. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when I've worked with so many different young ladies throughout the years, some women, you know, let me give you an example. One young lady, before she was raped, she was, you know, average weight and everything. But after the violation happened to her, the way she coped with it was she said she subconsciously was going to make herself unattractive to men. And the way that she thought she could do that was to put on weight. So she just started eating. She gained a lot of weight. But she also learned that didn't stop. that, that violation from happening because it happened again, unfortunately, to her when she was heavier. You understand what I'm saying? So not only the trauma of the first rape, then the trauma of what she dealt with low self-esteem, having gained all that weight and how people started to mistreat her just for being heavy, then getting raped again at heavy, she felt as though it's no hope at all, and so she really was suicidal when she had come to us. And long story short, thank God she was sent to a program that helped her and became whole again, as far as with spirit, soul, and body, But it was a process for her. But every victim doesn't have an extra 200 pounds on them. Some victims look like supermodels walking the runway in Milan, in Italy. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So victims are not just women. There's so many men who have been violated, and we don't speak on that enough. It's just that we think it's just women. And I mean, I hear the stories of some young boys, well, they're grown men now, but you look at them and never know that their uncles were raping them every weekend for like 4 years straight. And it's just like, my God, this is not just something that happens to just women. It's across the board, and in society just seems to, with men, they really tell them, just suck it up, suck it up, or you a punk, you let it happen to you, and so that carries its own trauma in how people treat you once they find out.
Absolutely.
But one thing I learned is that our secrets keep us sick. And at the end of the day, nothing, whatever happened to you is not worse than holding on to it and not sharing it, because it's just going to eat you up even more. The only time a sore can really heal is when it's exposed.
Very, very true. I have a poem that talks about this bandage or bondage, and it talks about, you choose, to stay, keep the bandage on or live in, to live in bondage, or we can remove the bandage. You know what I mean? And so, there, a lot of us have scars, right? And some of them, we can see them, but we don't know what it came from. We don't know what caused it. We don't know why it's so deep. And although the scar, is no longer in pain and is healed in that sense, that's every time you look at it, you remember, I got this. I fell on my bike when I was a kid. I can look at that scar and say, this is what happened. You know what I mean? That was first grade, second grade, something like that. And I remember me falling on my bike exactly where it happened just by looking at the scar, And so you're right. A lot of us walk around with masks and we say that, we're good, we're okay, but it really does come out in our behaviors and our actions and our speech. And, every day, though, we wake up with brand new mercies. We try to get it right, the next day, as long as we're alive. We just have to keep on going and trying to make better decisions and better choices. But you're right, there are a lot of people hurting and too afraid to say, I'm hurt, I need help, especially, like you said, the men. They don't really want to talk about, the trauma that they've experienced, and especially just being a man sometimes can be traumatic with all the things that they have to kind of experience in the world today. So I agree, but I'm thankful for, opportunities like this to have discussions. So I praise God for you, for allowing me to even share some of my testimony, and for you sharing yours, and finding people who are willing to do the same, just so that people don't have to stay sick.
Yeah, I like that. And broken crayons still color. Oh,
they do.
But I think we're going to end this podcast on that, because that was just so phenomenal. And I appreciate you, Lisa, for just sharing your story with us. And also, if you want to tell our listeners how they can follow you, I'll also post it.
Yes, I would love that. So I'm on YouTube. It's youtube.com. It's spelled out One Singing Lady, ONESINGINGLADY. All social media, the numeral one Singing Lady. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I'll be releasing a new CD tomorrow. So you can go to CD Baby, and it'll soon be on Spotify and Apple Music and iTunes, anywhere where you can download. It's called Depend, and I'm excited to finally be doing something after my first CD came out 15 years ago, and I have a single that came out in 2015. But instead of allowing the music just to sit there for 10 years, and 10 more years, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put this out. So please go to cdbaby.com and just put in Lisa Gilliam, and you can find the new CD starting tomorrow.
That's awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much, Lisa. I totally and truly appreciate it. I'm going to let you just end the podcast with whatever final words you want to say to our listeners.
I just want to know whoever is listening, just to know that regardless of what you've gone through, you still have purpose. There's still a reason to live. Choose to celebrate life. Don't just exist, you know. And if you messed up today, that's all right. You have another time. You're still living to get it right. And so you have purpose. And broken crayons still color. I'm an example. I'm a witness. And I'm sure many of you all are too. So just don't give up. Keep on coloring your life. Keep on, you know, do whatever you have to do to keep moving forward until your time is done. You still have purpose.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And on that note, you all, thank you all again. This is Angela Johnson-Ayers, your host with the Bridge Building Podcast with Angela. Until next time, you all be blessed and keep walking forward across that bridge towards destiny. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.